Assalamu alaikum. In this video, we will see how we can work with environment variables in Kubernetes. With environment variables, we can pass some data or some configuration to a container running in a pod inside a Kubernetes cluster. Here we're going to see an example of a Flask application. So here I have a very simple Flask application. So this application will display this HTML code, and it will display exactly hi combined with the username. This username is an environment variable that we have here. So instead of hard coding the value of the username and having a static application, here we're going to use an environment variable called username to make the application a little bit dynamic. And here we have the Docker file to Dockerize this Flask application. So here we're going to use this image as a base image, and then we set the working directory. And with the env instruction, we set the username here to my name, and we're going to see how we can change this value both with Docker and Kubernetes. And with the copy instruction, we copy all the code to the Docker image, and then we install all the requirements needed for the application. And finally, here with the cmd instruction, we tell Docker how to execute our application. Okay. To build this Docker image, we can simply use the docker build command. So docker build, and then we give it the path to the Docker file, and we give it a tag. So here I will call the image a Flask app, and then press enter. Here the build is done very fast because I have already built a Docker image. Now let's see the images that we have with Docker images. And here is our Flask application. Now to create a container using this Docker image, so we use the docker run command, and then we map the port of the container to the port of the host, and we give it the name of the image, which is Flask app. So let's press enter. So now the container is running. And to access our application, let's click here on follow link. And now our application displays hi Wissam, okay? Because here in the Docker file, I have set the username to my name, which is Wissam, okay? If we want to change the name displayed here, we can create, for example, another container. And now we're gonna map another port of our host to the port of the container. So here I use the port 4000 because the port 5000 is already used. And with the -e option, we set the username environment variable to John instead of this value. Okay. So now when we execute this application, instead of seeing here hi Wissam, we're gonna see hi John. Okay. So let's press enter. Let's click here on follow link. Here we see the same text because here we are using the port 5000, which is the port mapped for the first container. So here we have to change the port to 4000. And when we press enter, we see here hi John. Okay. So that's how we change the value of the environment variable with Docker. Now we're gonna see how we can do that with Kubernetes. So for that, we have here a YAML file for deploying a pod using the Flask Docker image. So here we have kind pod because we will create a pod object. For the metadata here, we have the name of the pod, which is Flask pod. Here we give it some labels. And in this spec section, we have the containers array. So here we call our container Flask app container. For the image, we're gonna use the Flask app image, which is the image that we have built previously. Here I set image pool policy to never to tell Minikube to use the local image and don't try to pull the image from Docker Hub. And here we have the env property. The env property is an array that will contain all the environment variables that we want to set for this container. So for example, here we set the username environment variable to this value. So the env property will allow us to set the environment variables needed for this container. And here in the bottom we have the configuration for creating a node port service to access our application from the browser. And now to create these two Kubernetes objects, which are the pod and the node port service, we use the command kubectl create -f, and then we give it the name of the YAML file, which is flaskpod.conf.yaml. So let's press enter. Here we see that the pod and the service are created. So let's display the pods that we have. For that we use the command kubectl get pods. Here we have only the Flask pod. And for the service we have a cluster IP service created by Minikube when we start the cluster, and a node port service created using this YAML file. And now to access the application from the browser, we need this node port service and the node IP. To get the node IP, we're gonna use the command kubectl get nodes with the white option. So here is the IP of the node, which is the IP of Minikube. So we're gonna copy this IP address, and here we pass the node IP and the node port. The node port is 31,000. So here is the node port. Okay. Now let's press enter. So now we are accessing the application inside the Kubernetes cluster. And here we see Hi Mary, because here we have set this username environment variable to this value. Okay. If we remove this env property, here instead of seeing Hi Mary, we're gonna see Hi Wissam. Okay, because by default the username environment variable has the value Wissam. So let's verify that by removing the pod and the service and recreate them. To delete both the pod and the service, we use the command kubectl delete -f, and then we give it the name of the YAML file. So here Minikube tells us that the pod and the service was deleted. And let's recreate them. So instead of delete, we're gonna use kubectl create. Now the pod and the service was created. Now let's refresh this page. So here we have Hi Wissam. You can change this name by using the env property and setting the username environment variable to the value that you want. Okay, so I hope that is clear how we can work with environment variables in both Docker and Kubernetes, and thank you very much.